Well, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Marc Farzetta here. Welcome into the Farzy Show at the Steven Singer Studios. I want to run through a couple of quick impressions at the start of the show here. First impressions: Sixers in the first half against the Charlotte Hornets. Yeah, that's how you do it. Joel Embiid, first quarter, slamming it down, driving the lane, looking incredible, hitting a three, driving the lane, getting a little finger roll. Sixers second half. Thanks for the bad beat, guys. But they still win the game, so I'm not going to let my betting influence how I feel overall about our 10-9-8-76ers. That's just one impression I want to get out of the way. The other impression I'll give you is the Flyers, about 10 seconds into their game last night. Oh, come on, Ghost. What was that? Let a man beat you just like that. Come on. And then they storm back. They get 3 unanswered goals. They're up 3-1 with under 12 to play in the third period against a team I've hated for a very long time, just as you have hated as well, a team entitled the Boston Bruins. And they allow 2 goals in the final 12 minutes. They go to overtime. They're on the penalty kill, and they lose the game 4-3 to the Bruins. That did not make me feel good. Carter Hart can't be your best penalty killer, as he was with a couple of great saves, especially late in that game, in regulation, if you will. It was so frustrating going back and forth, and watching the Sixers. They started to crumble a little bit. Flyers, they were already down 1-0 very early, like I said. And then you watch them actually come back, and you're thinking, okay, they got this. And then the Sixers, again, bad beat. We'll get to that a little bit more later. And they're starting to still at least hold off Charlotte. I saw our boy Matisse Thybulle hit a big quarter 3 in that game, which was awesome to see. Good to see him maybe hopefully developing that 3-and-D guy that we love so much. And then I'm watching them hold him off. I'm watching them hold off the Hornets, and then I go back to the Flyers, and they started to pick it up a little bit, but then they start to disappoint late, allowing those goals. And a lot of them, bad bounces, but bottom line is bottom line. They could not hold up against the Bruins late in that game. They allowed the onslaught, maybe a couple of bad penalties as well that gave the Bruins an opportunity to get back and tie that game and then later be able to win it in overtime. And I know some hockey people, they got a point. Should have been 2 points. I've always hated the scoring system in hockey, rewarding for losing. And I'm looking at it last night and just thinking to myself, you know what? I still think this is a really good team. Carter Hart played great throughout the game, had a bad goal early with Ghost getting beat, and then everything just came off in the late third period and obviously in overtime as well. So it didn't take long once the Bruins were able to battle back and tie the game. But we're going to talk a little bit more Flyers later, as the guest for today is Riley Cote, former Flyer. Riley Cote will join the show. He coached up a lot of these guys when they were with the Phantoms. He was a coach down there in the AHL. He's also the co-host of the Nasty Knuckles podcast and web show as well. So I look forward to talking to Riley. I am shocked he's up at this hour. My man's up. He is running around. Apparently, this is like the middle of the day for him. So he'll be joining us coming up around 6:20 today to help us further understand what to take away from that Flyers loss last night to the Bruins, other than just being wildly disappointed. But to go back to the Sixers, I was really amazed and continue to be amazed at this level of play that we're seeing, not just from Joel Embiid, who I think we could talk about for days and days and days and days as to what he has done, but also the way Tobias Harris has been playing. We talked about a big Matisse Thybulle 3 that he hit last night in the game. Forget about that for a second. The top of the key 3 late in the fourth quarter, Tobias Harris was able to come up with to help just quell momentum for Charlotte. And yeah, they came back and they ended up winning by, they ended up beating the 7.5 point spread. Fine. Can you tell I'm not over it yet? But he hits that 3. And at least at that moment, you felt like the Sixers, they weren't going to let this one slip away. It kind of made you have that feeling that we had a couple of different times this season of, last year's team loses this game. Like maybe they allow Charlotte to come back and actually they win the game and not just give a bad beat to the bettors. But when it comes to the way they played, overall, Tobias Harris really stepped up last night. And it wasn't just Joel Embiid. You saw a couple of good plays as well from Ben Simmons and the rest of the squad. Seth Curry, not the best game for him last night. But overall, Tobias Harris, I really feel like we need to give a lot of love to. Because with this squad, when you have Simmons and Embiid, those are the 2 guys that we're focusing in on. And when you have the shooters that the Sixers have, you start looking at them because we have been longing for those guys for so long. But Tobias Harris last night, very versatile game. Scoring in the paint, dribble drive, penetration, getting all that going for him, jump shots, the three-pointer. That was the Tobias Harris last night that we have seen at different points throughout this season. But this is the most consistently not game takeover worthy, but at least this is the most consistent all-star worthy performances we have seen so far from Tobias Harris as a 76er. And I know last year we saw some really good games from Tobias Harris, but mostly this year, I never look at Tobias Harris and go, this guy will take over the game, no problem. He's not that type of player. But with the consistency that he has, when he's averaging 22 points a game, 23, 24 points, when you consistently get that from him and you're getting rebounds and you're not turning the basketball over and you're being a leader of men on the court as well, it can't help make you feel great, not just about the trade that happened a couple of years ago, but just knowing that he's here with some guys that are just coming into their own as leaders. And one of the things I get into, we talked to Paul Hudrick last night, and we talked about leadership. Paul and I, he covers the Sixers for ESPN 97.3. And Paul does a great job doing it. He also has a podcast, Coming In for a Landing podcast. And Paul and I were talking about the maturation of Joel Embiid. And it's not just about what you're seeing on the court, although that's what matters most. But you're also talking about a guy who is taking full accountability for his own actions on the court and as a teammate. It's not just something to watch a guy move along as a more mature player and obviously becoming a more mature human being overall, but it's also something to watch that come out on the court, being a leader. Because you talk about guys taking accountability. It's not just about being a talented player and having accountability. It's also about being a leader for this basketball team. Tobias Harris, it's funny. It's almost like he shouldn't be in the leadership role that he's in now with the Sixers because it doesn't seem like Ben wants that role. It didn't seem like Joel Embiid wanted that role, but now it seems like he's at least warming up to that role. Danny Green definitely has those qualities about him as well, telling a guy like Matisse Thybulle, hey, man, don't compare yourself to me. Be better than me, as he said a couple of weeks ago, and I love that. But when it comes to Embiid, we had talked so much about the maturity level with him. I had talked earlier in the week about how he needs to solidify himself as the big boy on the team and really take the reins and be the leader of this squad because this is his team. Tobias Harris just came here a couple of years ago. This seems like, again, he's at least warming up to the idea of being the leader of the 76ers. And it might sound cliche, like when we talk about the C in hockey, oh, he's got the C's, people respect him. No, it just comes to making sure you're holding not just yourself anymore accountable. You become a leader when you're holding the rest of your team accountable as well. And listening to Joel Embiid last night, you want to talk about a maturation process. You want to talk about the process maturing. Look at I'll play this for you. This is what he told Mark Zumoff and Al Abdelnaby on the post-game show after another great performance for the 76ers last night. Listen to JoJo as he was asked about becoming a father and how that's really taken his game to the next level.
It's been great. I'm kind of bummed, about not being home every single day. I miss them a lot when I'm on the road, but it's been great. I'm just enjoying. I like to keep my life private, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's been an amazing experience, and just watching him grow every single day makes me better. I think that's also part of me also being better this year. I want him to grow up and see his father be, at the top of his game, the best in the game. I want him to know that, see that his father was an Hall of Famer and win titles because I want him to be better than me. Just like, my father growing up, I saw him, the success that he had. I wanted to be better than him. So, I got to set the bar really high. So I hope, he's able to, be better than me.
Who's chopping onions? That is, I, anyone who's a father, I think, can identify with that. That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. I don't do that sarcastically. I say that I'm not even kidding. The fact that your kid wants to make you a better man, a better basketball player, I'm not kidding you. That's heartwarming. Anybody who's a dad, I think, can identify with what he just said. It does take you to a new level personally, and if that's translated on the court for him, hey, as Sixers fans, we'll take it. You talk about all the things he did in the offseason. That's what we got into with my friend Paul Hudrick last night to really get to this level of play that he's playing at. And after the game, I was able to have Paul jump on, and I asked him the simple question that we've really been talking about all week, and that is this the best version of Joel Embiid that you ever seen? And here's Paul on that.
100%. And I think it's just everything. It's not it. I think that is a factor, right? I mean, you could speak to that, Mark. When you become a father, it changes you, right? And like you have to grow up in a hurry. You have to kind of mature. And then everything else that happened this offseason. Look, they lost. Their coach got fired. Brett Brown got fired. That was the only NBA coach Joel Embiid has ever known. Granted, Brett Brown, he lost his job because he lost his job because he didn't get the job done. But that still, I imagine, has an effect on you as a player that the team wasn't good enough and a coach got fired. People got fired because the team wasn't good enough, and you're part of that team. So I imagine that has to have some kind of effect on you. Then you look at the fact that in the ESPN article that came out, he hired a world class nutritionist this offseason. And then just the roster, what Daryl Morey's done, moving Josh Richardson and Al Horford and finding two pieces in Seth Curry and Danny Green that just fit exponentially better with Joel Embiid. And the way he's playing, Mark, it's smart and it's efficient. And I think that's the difference. He always had the skill, he always had the physical prowess, but he's playing smarter and he's playing more efficient. You see, even right, like shooting threes. I think he's 3 of 5 from three tonight. He's over 40% for the season, I think. So, all of this is a factor, and it's all a reason why, to me, quarter pole in, he's the MVP of the league so far. There is nobody doing it better on both ends of the floor right now to me than Joel Embiid in the entire NBA.
Once again, that's Sixers insider Paul Hudrick for 97.3 ESPN. And one of the other things is, if you look around the league, I think there's only 4 players in the NBA that have 30-plus point performances and 10 plus rebound performances across the NBA. 4 of them. Joel Embiid has 6 of those performances, and he's 6-0. The Sixers are 6-0 when he does it. He's the only one that's undefeated of the 4. And Joker's, by the way, one of the other guys that's being able to put those performances together. And the Denver Nuggets are only 3-3 in those games where Joker goes off. So what we're getting from Joel Embiid is just special. That's all. It's the only word you can usually really use to describe it. It's just a special performance almost night in and night out. And one of the things that does give me the most optimism surrounding his game this year, when you talk about the MVP status and all that, it is the nutritionist. It is the fact that it looks like he's taking care of his body. I know we're not there at the stadium. And by the way, more on that a little bit later when we get into the Morning Rush segment. A great sign for fans returning to the Wells Fargo Center, hopefully in the not too distant future. Something great happened down there, so we'll talk about that in a second. But when it comes to just how Joel Embiid's playing, we always talk about the burgers and all that other stuff. He's got to take care of his body. Going with the nutritionist, making sure he is doing just that and taking care of his body, that's a phenomenal thing that we can follow throughout this year. So that's a great thing. One other note, what would be a show if we didn't mention Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts? I'm watching ESPN yesterday, and I was watching Get Up, and Marcus Spears is on there, and he's doing his thing. And I believe it just came off of Sal Palantonio talking about the quarterback controversy and the Jalen Hurts comments that he made to CBS Sports that we got into yesterday about how he's going to take the bull by the horns, and he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that he earns the starting reins, take the starting reins from Carson Wentz on this football team. And Marcus Spears basically gets into the idea that this is not a fair race. It's not fair even a little bit. Everything is done for Carson. And I have mentioned throughout the week about that TKO. You can't just have a technical knockout. You got to knock out the reigning champ. You got to knock out the guy that is the starting quarterback and really make sure you dominate throughout training camp if there's any semblance of a quarterback competition. And Spears was just laughing at it yesterday. He said, wait, hold on a second. You brought in Frank Reich's boy. Frank Reich, the guy that Carson Wentz had his best years under. And you didn't even look at a guy like Eric Bieniemy? You didn't even look at some of these other candidates that were out there that might be better suited for this team overall, not just better suited for Carson Wentz, but better suited for maybe, I don't know, a guy like Miles Sanders, who's your best offensive weapon. Maybe better suited for a guy like Jalen Reagor. Maybe, and here's a wild thought, maybe a guy like Eric Bieniemy, who was the guy that was talked about by everybody, even before the coaching vacancies throughout the NFL, maybe a guy like that that's worked with Patrick Mahomes, maybe a guy like that that's worked with a lot of young talent there in Kansas City and has helped put together a great offense, albeit, yes, very much under Andy Reid, but albeit, why not give that guy a little bit more of a fair shake? Because according to Andy Reid yesterday, Eric Bieniemy was never contacted by the Philadelphia Eagles. There was a report from the NFL Network that the Eagles had asked for permission to talk to him. Yesterday, during the Super Bowl week. Andy Reid came out in a beautiful Hawaiian shirt, as per usual. And Big Red came out and said, you know what? Actually, the Eagles, they never asked. He didn't go into detail about it. But again, Eric Bieniemy just passed over. I would have such a bigger issue if he was hired by somebody else. But he wasn't. The entire league overlooked him again. I don't know if he's just bad on Zoom. I don't know if he's bad on digital interviews. I don't know what the problem is. But if I just listed his resume, wouldn't you want a guy that is going back to back-to-back Super Bowls as an offensive coordinator? Wouldn't you want a guy that has been around the MVP of the league, the best player in the league right now, in a guy like Patrick Mahomes? Wouldn't you want to be around a guy whose offense has been up there with the best in the NFL the last 2-3 seasons? I think I'd want that guy. Oh, yeah, and again, not just Patrick Mahomes, but working with a young quarterback, really overseeing how he has come along in the NFL. I know Andy Reid gets a lot of credit for that. I don't know if they were just sheepish of going to Doug Peterson, going back to that tree from Andy Reid and all that. But if that's the resume, man, that's pretty darn impressive. And he's not wrong. Marcus Beard's not wrong when it comes to all the things he could bring to the table and all the things that Sirianni, for instance, doesn't necessarily bring to the table except for that one check mark. He knows Frank Reich. He's worked with Frank Reich for a long time. Coming up here in just a second, we're going to be joined by my good friend Riley Cote, Nasty Knuckles podcast, Nasty Knuckles web show. Follow him on Twitter, on Instagram. Does a great job. He's interviewed a whole slew of former and current Flyers players, and I am wildly disappointed in what took place last night with the orange and black, and we'll get Riley's take on all that coming up in just a second. But first and foremost, as I mentioned before, this is the Steven Singer Studios, and my good friend Steven Singer is already ready for Valentine's Day. He's always ready for Valentine's Day. He's really ready for any holiday. And why not say I love you? Who better to say I love you with than Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers? I've been talking about him for years. If you followed me here to this digital platform, you know how much I love Steven Singer, and I'm excited that he's on board for this show. I want to talk to you about what this man does, because he does nothing but the right stuff. We've talked a lot about how he considers himself to be a combination of Walmart and Tiffany's. So you know you get the perfect price every single time you go to Steven Singer Jewelers. Doesn't mess around with sales and discounts or anything like that. I don't even have a promo code when I talk to you about Steven Singer, because you're already getting the best possible price, the best sale every single day. Here's what you got going on right now. You can shop knowing you're getting that best value, and Valentine's Day next week. Steven Singer, check him out for Valentine's Day. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com to avoid shipping delays. Go there right now. Steven has the #1 gift for Valentine's Day, and that's his real roses dipped in real 24-karat pure gold, preserved and guaranteed to last a lifetime. There's no better time to say I love you, especially with the brand new Twinkle Deep Blue Sparkling Rose, the color of the night sky, and just as the sun goes down. You know what, tomorrow I'm going to have my bouquet of Steven Singer roses right here, so you see the goods for yourself. Go now to IHateStevenSinger.com. Get free shipping at IHateStevenSinger.com, starting at just $59. Make sure you check that out. And also, while I'm talking about Steven, I do want to make this announcement. Our first official on show. I know we've been doing things and giveaways like stuff like that online with our Twitter account and all that. But our first official in-show promotion is brought to you by Steven Singer, as we're announcing Big Game Squares presented by Steven Singer. This will link you with we'll send the link out at about noon today, so you can check it out on social. Limited spots available, as you would assume with Super Bowl squares, and you can get up to you could have great things end up for your Valentine's Day gift free just by entering this contest. We'll be giving out literal gold in the form of their gold-dipped roses, courtesy of our friends at Steven Singer. And the grand prize will be receiving their Star of Love necklace. Doesn't get much better than that. We've talked a lot of Sixers to open up the show, but last night, I've always said this, I am a big Flyers fan, and I have been my whole life. And one of the things I like about this platform is that it really opens it up more to a hockey audience. For whatever reason, in sports radio, it didn't translate. For whatever reason, I don't know. But I know in the digital platform it does. And one of the reasons I know that is because of our next guest. His name is Riley Cote. We have a former Flyers coach with the Phantoms. This man is incredible, and Nasty Knuckles podcast as well. Riley, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me. How's everything?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, you're our first official live guest. So that's exciting, just to have somebody live on the air with us at 6 o'clock. What time do you get up, brother?
Yeah, you know what? I usually get up between 4 and 4:30, trying to buy myself some time before my young girls get up. So it's what I have to do.
You know what? I'm glad you brought your girls up here because Joel Embiid was just talking about how his fatherhood has taken his play to the next level. It is a motivating factor when you start having kids and you're an athlete to only say really not even just being an athlete but just being a professional overall. It's like, oh, I got to be accountable for not just myself but for somebody else now.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely humbling for sure. I mean, I find myself in bed shortly thereafter. They go to bed, sometimes around 9 o'clock, and it's just what I have to do, right? I mean, it's just part of the game, and no, it's not just my own mental health, but it's for me being present for them. So it's important.
It's unreal, man, and you're doing some great stuff now with Nasty Knuckles and all that. But last night, I'm watching everything unfold. I flip over, I see the goal scored in the first 12 seconds of the game, and I see Ghost just get beat. When you watch that play unfold, what happened on that? It looked like he went between the legs of Shane Gostisbehere, went in for the goal, and just beat Carter Hart. What did you see unfold on that one?
Tell you honest truth, I missed the first part of the game, so I couldn't even. I landed up tuning in later, but from what from what it looked like, it was yeah, it's just a bad read. I don't know, and then towards the end of the game, obviously, a meltdown with 15 seconds left. I mean, it's just yeah, it's unfortunate. I feel like the Bruins are in their head for some reason. I mean, they were rolling so well there the last 4 games, and then to wrap up the game like that, it's unfortunate. But to me, they're just not generating enough offense, especially in that third period. I mean, I think they only got 6 shots or something. And the couple of games that they squeezed out in the last few games, they just haven't been generating enough offense to win games, and the goalies have been keeping them in it. So, with the the coaching strategy, always obviously always trying to preach, generate offensive chances and play an offensive game, but it's not that easy. The games are tough and tightly checked, and so overcoached a lot of the time. So but in saying that, there is some positives out of the game, obviously, and the young, some of these young bucks are contributing. JVR is another couple apples there again last night. So it's just, you just got to find a way to win those games. You can't find ways to lose. I think that's what they did last night.
Yeah, the first part of the game, I know people were worried, myself included, after that first goal. And then, really, what we should have been worried about is late in that third period because that really was the story of the game. Couple of penalties as well. I know Lawton had a penalty late in that game. I think it was an interference penalty. They ended up getting that goal in the final couple of seconds here. But I know a lot of times the casual hockey fan will look at a game like that and just look at the goalie and say, "Oh, Carter Hart, how do you allow those goals so late in the game?" I didn't think any of the last two goals were really his fault. There were some bad bounces. No.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, I go back to the amount of offense they generated. When you're playing offense, you're playing away from your net. It's like you have a lead and you have to play like you have a lead. So to me, it's not on the goaltending. It's a team effort of playing better in front of them and just play, at the very least, just play away from your own net. Even if you're not generating that much offense, but I mean, they got shut out. It was like 12-6. You know what I mean? And you just it's the pressure's on when you're playing like that, and it's almost like you're playing to expect something bad to happen. Is really what it seemed like. So yeah, it's just one of those games. You have to take some learning experiences out of it and go into the next game and get a win because again they're playing them tomorrow again, and the Boston Bruins are in their head right now.
That's certainly what it seems like. And the hockey cliche, grabbing the sticks too tight, kind of comes to mind when it comes to how they play the Boston Bruins, especially late in that game. One of the guys that has had some struggles this year is Travis Konechny and getting benched by Alain Vigneault a couple of games ago. And I don't know if he's obviously trying to send a message. What do you think's been the problem with Konechny so far this season?
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because he's got so many valuable pieces. He's full of energy and speed and grit, and he plays the game the right way. I think before they had benched him there, I think he'd only squeezed out 3 shots. I say 1 shot in the last 3 games before that. So he's just obviously not generating enough offense with his skill set. So maybe it's just getting into those greasy areas a little bit more. I think when he's playing his best, he's always chirping. He's always in people's faces. He's just got that that edge to him. So you just got to find a way to get on the scoreboard, and at the very least, get some shots. You know what I mean? Get some action going around the net. So it's a learning curve for some of these young guys. They go through little waves of ups and downs, and when things are going well, it's going well, and then it seems like when it's not, it's not. So the good thing is you got some other young guys stepping up, when TK is not producing. So I guess, there is some silver lining in this whole thing. But, if you're going to be a competitor, and if you're going to be, thinking you're going to go the distance, you have to have everyone going. And that's the only way that you're going to win. But to me, there's still a lot of positives with this team.
No, no doubt. And I think one of the positives is it's been Claude Giroux, the great assist last night. And last night I'm watching it, and I didn't realize this. 900 games for the Flyers, obviously. Longest tenured captain. He set that mark a couple of games ago. I didn't grow up watching Bobby Clark. So when I talked to my dad about the Flyers from years ago, it just seems like Bobby Clark, always a Flyer, forever.
Right.
So I don't think of him as not a Flyers captain. When I heard that it was, it snuck up on me. I didn't realize Claude was closing in on that. And we talk about leadership a lot throughout the sports, and he seems to be a great leader for this hockey team. And you obviously play with them at a very young age. Can you talk about how he's come along as a leader so far for this Flyers team?
Yeah, absolutely. G is he certainly stepped into that role very well. He's just such a high end player, and he's respected amongst his teammates. And like you said, he just seems like he's just like the Flyer. I couldn't imagine G in any other uniform, but yeah, he just like anything else, it's a skill set, right? I mean, leadership is a skill that's learned, and I think he's had some really awesome captains before him, and having a good support cast of some veteran guys around him certainly helps. But example, he's not the most vocal guy always, but you know what you're going to get out of G most of the night, most of the time, and he's a high level guy, and he plays the game hard, and he leaves it on the ice. So I love G, and I just love to see him grow, not just as a player, but as a leader. So it's been nice.
Yeah, it was the play in front of the net, last night that I think they scored the third goal on. He provided the screen, got back checked, and then they ended up scoring. I think it was actually might have been the Hayes goal, as a matter of fact. But yeah, it was just great to see him on the ice and doing his thing last night as well. Now, this is interesting to me. I'm always curious when a hockey player wants to go in any form of the media, whether that's a pre or post game analyst, whether that's hosted their own show, whatever it might be. And here you are as the co-host of the Nasty Knuckles podcast, where you're interviewing hockey players, you're interviewing guys. You interviewed Chief Craig Berube. I think was he your first guest, Chief?
He was our second. Scott
guest.
was our first one.
Scott Hartnell was your first guest, and you interviewed Chief. You interviewed all these guys. I was there actually for Jake Voracek, and that was a great interview. I have never seen a hockey player come out of his shell, more so than the way they do with you and Nasty himself. It's really unbelievable. You guys do a great job with that show. What made you want to get into talking about hockey for the mass audience?
You know what? I think it was a combination of just, wanting to get back into the hockey scene, but also not really wanting to get into like analytics. I wanted to humanize the player and just like talk to them like we'd talk to the guy in the locker room. So, just being a team guy when I was playing, that was kind of like my bread and butter, was just being just like a good guy in the locker room and a good communicator. I just wanted to just like sit down and talk with guys. So, talk with Nasty. He's got a great rapport with the players. Obviously, great communicator, good storyteller. His memory is unbelievable. He pulls stuff out of his ass. It's unbelievable. But yeah, no. So it was just one of those things, like knowing Nasty and knowing myself, is that we have relationships with these guys. It'd be like it's foolish not to take advantage of his relationships and then again humanize the player, because a lot of fans don't really understand that these guys are human beings outside of their uniforms. You know what I mean? They just see them on the ice, and they hear them do the post game interview, and they don't really ever hear any real true stories from them. So I just thought it was a good idea to take advantage of that network and the contacts, and to at least try and give it an honest college attempt to say I didn't see myself getting back into the media, but it was just more so just shooting the shit with the guys and having some fun with it.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Now, Riley, the other part of this is you, like I said, you've coached up a lot of these guys. Giroux was one of them. I know you knew Mike Richards from back in the day as well. He's your most recent guest, if I'm not mistaken. I was watching some of it. Like Mike Richards is a guy that I just remember talking to the media saying, "Oh God, the same questions. Here we go." And I'm just like, "Yeah, dude, you're the captain. This is the way it is." But he started coming out of his shell with you guys as well.
Yeah, we actually talked about that, the pressures of the media and everything when he was captain. But yeah, I guess, you build a relationship with guys, and some of these guys and don't even have a great relationship with. But I just feel like if you ask real questions and you're not feeling like you're trying to extract something negative out of them, they feel threatened a lot of times when that happens. So just talking to them man to man, and just and having fun with it. I think that's part of what we're trying to do with this is not keep it so stale and so structured and rigid around what you accomplished and all these numbers and all this stuff. It's just more like just having some fun with their experience as a hockey player. And obviously some stories do come up around those things, but that's not really the premise of it. So it's just making light of things, trying to get a smile on the guy's face. And I think the more comfortable they are, the more able they are to get out of their comfort zone and share stories that they might not share with say a normal media personality. So
Like me, you could say it. Yeah, like me.
yeah, no, I think you have that sense of communication where you're able to extract some good information because you ask like real questions, and I think you're genuine with the way you ask it. I think that's at the end of the day when you start communicating that way, there's a mutual respect there. I think that's what we're trying to generate.
Yeah, no, it certainly comes across, and maybe it's also just the fact that I have a hockey nickname, as people tell me on social media, Farzy, and it's an easy hockey nickname. Like, slap my stick on the ice, there you go, absolutely. Last thing about the podcast and the webisodes and all that stuff, you can follow it on Instagram and all that. Nasty Knuckles podcast. The last thing is, do you have a favorite moment? And if not your favorite moment, maybe one of your top three, maybe something that took you back a little bit in talking to guys like Simone Gagne and talking to Chief, talking to Hartsey, talking to Jake, talking to Mike Richards. Do you have something that's really jumped out to you that you think about like, wow, that kind of took me by surprise?
Well, that's a tough question. You know what? I don't necessarily have a most memorable moment. I think maybe like there was a couple things like leading up, like the time like Paul Holmgren called me into his office there and told me I was getting called up, and then my first shift. There's some things that are really vivid in my memory, but there's and then just obviously just some other smaller moments, but I wasn't even playing in the 2008 10 playoffs there, but just that run, just that run going into the playoffs and winning that last game of the regular season against the Rangers, and then in a shootout, and then going the distance. I think just like that energy and really that just that combined effort thing. Everyone thought we were going to win the Stanley Cup that year, but just like being around that team, and what an amazing team we had. And I think I love Lates to death, and it was just one of those, maybe goalie situation could have gone a little better throughout the season there, but nonetheless, it was that moment. I think that the package there throughout the playoffs in 2010 certainly still sticks with me. And we talked with Richie. It's just like one of those things when you think you're going to win and you don't. It's just like there's something just missing. I still look back. I mean, I could have, retired from the Philadelphia Flyers as Stanley Cup champion. You know what I mean? But shoulda, woulda, coulda. But
Right.
that last year for sure really sticks with me.
As far as I'm concerned, it could still happen because I don't think that Patrick Kane goal ever went in. So it's still under review as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, you know what? Maybe that Stanley Cup run, maybe just a little bit that would beat making Chief think there was a snake in the cooler. Maybe that just slightly beats out that particular moment.
Oh, there's some funny moments off the ice for sure. Yeah, just seeing Nasty screw with players, and getting hard guys all soft, and getting them to jump out of their skin.
Last thing for you, back to the current team right now. I had great expectations for this Flyers team before the season started. I still have great expectations. I see them going to the next level. It was disappointing to see them. Although they got the number 1 seed, expectations changed. And I know they won, 9 in a row before the shutdown happened, and they got the number 1 seed in the bubble, which was great. But I still have high expectations for this Flyers team. I am expecting an Eastern Conference Finals appearance by this squad. Do you think that's possible? Do you think it's likely? How good is this Flyers team, Riley Cote?
Yeah, I do think it's likely and probable. I mean, they have a really good team on paper, and I think goaltending, they got an awesome 1-2 punch. I mean, you got a young goalie. It's essentially the franchise goal the Flyers have been looking for. You move through the defense core. I think that the defense needs to probably tighten up a little bit, but nonetheless, I mean, you got Provy, and you got some other younger defensemen in there that still can step their games up. And then you go through the forward lineup, and you got an awesome balance of veterans and young guys that are really contributing. So, I mean, you got some young, fresh energy in there. and some great leadership. To me, I don't see why they couldn't do what they did last year, if not obviously taking a step further and being a real true competitor, because I still feel, they won 4 games in a row up until yesterday there, and they're kind of like a little bit inconsistent right now. I still think that they got these, few more dimensions of their game that they haven't even tapped into yet. So, once they get Coots back and they just find that true chemistry, obviously staying healthy is always the key to winning anything. But, I think they've proven that they can kind of patch some holes and still be competitive. But, generating a little bit more offense, being a little more consistently there, maybe tightening up defensively a little bit. But to me, they got another 3 dimensions left. And, to me, they got just as good a chance as anybody.
All right. Now, I know it's early, but what time do the girls get up?
The girls will be up in about 15 minutes or so. Yeah.
All right. You know what, Dad? I'll let you get back to your family, my friend. Riley, thanks so much for coming on with us. Our first live guest, Riley Cote, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate it. Check out all this stuff. Nasty Knuckles web show, podcast. You and Nasty doing a phenomenal job. Instagram, Twitter. Where else can we see you?
Yeah, we're on Facebook as well, but mainly Instagram and Twitter, and then we have the nastyknuckles.com. But check us out, and YouTube as well. So Nasty Knuckles and Nasty Knuckles Pod on IG.
There you go. Riley, great talking to you again, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you, man. That's Riley Cote joining the show. And also, I think you might have seen a sneak peek at our producer, Jim Hyden, who does a great job right before I went on. Somebody's got to get better at the buttons, and that's this guy. It's not that guy. It's not Jim. It's me. Jim knows what he's doing. Me, I not so much. I'm not used to touching the buttons here. But no, that's a lot of interesting stuff from Riley that we'll recap in just a second. Appreciate him coming on with us. And we're going to talk to another really good Flyers guest tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Just to tease that, a very good Flyers guest we'll talk to tomorrow. But right now, I want to tell you about our friends at DraftKings. We got the big bet segment coming up in a minute here. And in case you missed it in the start of the show, I'm not too happy with the way that Sixers game ended. We'll get to that in just a second. But right now, I do want to tell you about some other things going on with DraftKings. The 55th big game is this weekend. And to finish off the football season, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is giving away all new customers a no-brainer of an offer when you use promo code Farzy. Use promo code Farzy to celebrate football's finale. DraftKings Sportsbook is doubling your money if a touchdown is scored in the big game. That's it. Just a touchdown being scored in the big game. That's all it takes. And you score a touchdown on Sunday, and boom, your money is doubled. Sounds like a no-brainer because it is a no-brainer. As of this game right now, you look at all the other games going on throughout the sports world, this is the biggest game, as we all know. And right now, if it's not enough reason to party, is it enough reason to party just for the fact that you're going to double your money? I think so. Don't forget about DraftKings Big Game Prediction Challenge. Up to $55 million in total prizes are up for grabs, and instant prizes for everyone who enters the contest. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Farzy, and you can get a shot at doubling your money if a touchdown is scored in the game on Sunday. Use promo code Farzy only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Be 21 or older, must be in Pennsylvania. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/prediction-challenge-DFS for details. Also, yesterday, we told you a little bit about our friends Steak in Maine. We'll continue to do that. Steak in Maine, fine dining in the heart of Northeast Maryland. Whether you dine in a more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality of prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. They got it all at Steak in Maine. See my man Tony Cavada, and him and his family do a great job as well with Cavada Cellars wine. It is just superb. Goes great with your meal there. Extensive wine list, including Cavada Cellars wine. Open every day for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Always a big deal. Steak in Maine in Northeast Maryland voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel and Cooking Channel. Check it out for yourself at steakandmaine.com for more information. And finally, our friends at Fan Up, who brought us Farzy in the field back yesterday, they are live, folks. So make sure you download the Fan Up app. Philadelphia, you could be the MVP of the big game. You got to get Fan Up. Join Fan Up's super fun Super Bowl contest to win a Peloton Bike Plus, also a mirror home gym, or even both. The days of playing fantasy sports alone are over. Enter FanUp's super fun big game tier contest. Answer fun questions, watch the game, and see who's right. I'm doing it with all my friends as well, so you might see me on there at FanUp. Download the app. It's fun and easy, and you can win a Peloton bike as well as a mirror or even both of them for the big game. You could be the MVP. Play FanUp and follow me. Download the FanUp app. Use promo code SBLV or FanUp and get 2,000 bonus points. That's SBLV or FanUp. Be part of the latest craze with FanUp. May the best fans win. Really interesting in talking to Riley Cote and all the things that he got into with the Flyers. And I know we talked a lot of the 76ers earlier in the show, and we'll recap that in a minute. But one of the interesting things that really sticks out to me is Carter Hart. And I know from talking to fans and all that stuff, a lot of the casual hockey fans, if they see a goal scored, it's automatically the goalie's fault. Well, I think most people know that that's just not the case. And I know some people might blame Carter for what happened last night. I was encouraged from what I saw, especially in the first period of that game. When you see him make the sliding pad save going across the goal line, literally an inch away from being a goal and being down 2-0 early in that game. And as Riley Cote told us, it's right. He's right. The Bruins are a team that seem to be in the Flyers' heads. I said gripping the stick too tight, the old cliche. That's what it looked like, especially late in that game when they allowed those 2 goals late. They got some bounces as well, and everything went the Bruins' way, and penalties and power plays and all that. But then even on the penalty kill, when you see the Bruins get a turnover in the neutral zone, they go into their offensive zone to try to score on Carter Hart one-on-one with the goalie, and he makes the save. I am encouraged by what I have seen from Carter Hart. And even going back to a couple of games ago where he had an awful performance and he was breaking the stick on the goalpost, I actually was encouraged by that. I was encouraged by what I saw from Carter Hart. Not during the game at all, but it's okay to get frustrated. If you're a competitor, it's okay to get frustrated from time to time. And that's what we saw from Carter Hart in that moment. And since then, he's been a much better goaltender. He let it out. He said it was out of character. He's sorry he did it. But hey, when you're in the heat of the moment, when you're in the heat of battle, sometimes things happen that are a little out of character of your everyday persona. And that's what happened to Carter Hart. But since then, we have watched him come along. We've watched him progress. We watched him gather himself and bounce back from that awful performance. Last night, I thought he played great. And yeah, a couple of bounces went the wrong way, and he wasn't able to catch up to him. But overall, I love the way Carter Hart played last night. Very encouraging to see the way that he has bounced back from all that. Going to do our social media check-in brought to you by our friends at Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland. Check out everything Steak and Maine has to offer at steakandmaine.com. Looking at some of the social media that I've been seeing so far today. Thanks for I asked this question yesterday. Is it okay to save a spot? And Tom on YouTube hit us up. And Tom said, it's okay to save. It's not okay to save a spot. However, you're an animal or a savage. I think he says you're a savage if you take that spot. So in other words, if you see the spot held when you're shoveling out of the snow, you got to dig your car out if you live in the city or you don't have a driveway, and then you don't put lawn chairs. If you put lawn chairs there or a cone or whatever, people use anything to save the spot. And then you drive up as some other guy who didn't dig out and you see it and you move it and then you park in it. Yeah, it might be a savage move, but I got to be honest, and I've dug out of the city plenty of times. I've never saved a spot. I don't feel right about it. Somebody else might need that spot in that moment, and that's that. I just think it's part of living in the city. It's part of living when you're in a group of a bunch of people. Not even in the city, but if you're living in a town, there's not a lot of parking available. It's the same type of thing. You still got to dig out. Everyone's got to dig out. I think it's just an unfortunate thing that happens, and you have to take into account. You maybe got to leave work early, maybe you got to stay home, maybe you got to, you can't leave, whatever. The saving the spot thing, I never understood. I've never adapted to that, but I have seen the arguments that have taken place over somebody catching somebody moving their cone or moving their folding chair. It's an interesting thing. So Tom on social media checking in right there, saying you're a savage if you take it. I'll follow along. But a lot of things. Also, it was brought up to me yesterday about the hockey nickname on Twitter. Somebody tweeted me. I don't know. I never played organized hockey. I played like roller hockey when I was growing up in Doylestown with a bunch of my buddies. Did that a lot, but I never had Farzy as nickname. Every family member I've ever had, or I have, has been Farzy at some point in their life. And none of us played hockey. I think the closest we got was maybe soccer. That's about it. But that's the social media check-in brought to you by our good friends at Steak and Maine. As for the Morning Rush, brought to you by Sky Motorcars. Check out skymotorcars.com, the official car of Carson Wentz and Avonte Maddox. The Morning Rush, the Bucs yesterday absolutely here's something you need to know. The Bucs yesterday absolutely dominated their game last night. They played the Pacers and they were able to close them out. Unlike the Sixers, they let the Hornets back into the game a little bit, especially at the end. We'll get to that a little bit more in big bets. But that Bucs game last night, Giannis played a great game, was dominant against the Pacers, and I've been kind of pushing the Bucs aside. You got other teams to take up your focus right now in the Eastern Conference, most notably the Brooklyn Nets, who, as we all know, just got James Harden, and we talked about the game yesterday with Kyrie Irving going off. That's going to be a good matchup, I think, for the Sixers. But when you talk about the Bucs, they seem like a team that has now flown under the radar. Miami, a team that was in the finals last year, doesn't look anything special so far this year. I know Jimmy Butler's been hurt a lot, but he's missed a lot of time. But when you look at everything else in this Eastern Conference, I almost push the Bucs aside and forget about them. Last night, 130 points they scored in their game against the Pacers, and they closed it out, like I said. And Giannis Antetokounmpo just had a great game, both ends of the court, the type of thing that we've come to know and really admire about his game throughout the season, throughout the regular season, that is. And he was able to do that last night. So I got to really remind myself that the Bucs are a pretty damn good basketball team most of the way. I don't think they're better than the Sixers, and I'm looking forward to that matchup. But right now, the Nets have more of my attention than anything. I still want to see the Sixers beat the Celtics with Jason Tatum in the lineup. I want to see that, need to see that. When you see them put other teams behind them, like the Raptors when they did earlier in the season, I don't think Fred VanVleet is going to be scoring that 54-point game like he did, like we talked about yesterday. But when you watch the Sixers, I just think that it's going to be them and the Nets. Those are the teams that I see as the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And I know I'm not alone in that, especially with the way Joel Embiid has been playing. Something else, little bit of a COVID scare in the NFL. This is a wild story, and I want to make sure I get this gentleman's name correct here. But what was really funny yesterday with this Kansas City Chiefs barber story, and I know there's nothing funny about COVID, but in this situation, the Chiefs get a bit of a COVID scare because of a barber, and one man is actually in the seat at the time. He's in the barber's chair at the time. Daniel Kilgore of the Kansas City Chiefs. And he said that while he was in the chair, he got a notification that there was a scare because of the barber. So that's considered close contact. He was in the chair. I don't think the haircut was started yet. But he had joked afterwards by sending out a picture with half his head shaved and the other half with his hair still growing out. Check it out on Twitter. Daniel Kilgore of the Kansas City Chiefs. Funny little side note that happened in yesterday's social media world. But it looks like most people for the Chiefs are going to be good. It's close contact, and we'll see the way that it unfolds. Adam Schefter was putting the story out yesterday. And speaking of Shefty, and speaking of the Marcus Spears story that we referenced earlier in the show, a couple of more things that you need to know in this morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars before you start your day of work, whether you're going to the office or you're staying at home. Yesterday, Adam Schefter came out, and he said he thought that Carson Wentz, his hunch was that Carson Wentz was going to be traded before the season. I still don't think that happens unless somebody gets hurt. Because we still have the draft coming up. There's quarterbacks available in the draft. You're more likely to go with somebody in the draft than you are to trade for a quarterback. And I think that's eventually how that problem gets solved. But when you look at everything that surrounds it, Donovan McNabb came out yesterday and talked to Zach Gelb of CBS Sports and said that he thinks the only way, our old friend Donovan McNabb said that the only way he sees this getting resolved is if Carson Wentz does, in fact, get traded. And now that's Donovan. That's Dan Orlovsky, who also came out and said he thought that Carson Wentz he's played his last snap for the Philadelphia Eagles. For me, I'm not shocked at anything that would happen. I'm not shocked if Carson would come out and be the starting quarterback. I'm not shocked if Jalen Hurts goes out and becomes the starting quarterback. I'm not shocked if Carson Wentz has been traded. I'm at a point right now in this whole debate about who the next starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles is going to be. I'm at a point right now where I'm almost just rooting for a separation. Because one of the things we talked about leading up to Jalen Hurts starting the last couple of games of the season was, yeah, sure, as a quarterback, you can have bad games, you can have problems, and we get that. And a team can have a whole bunch of problems, like the Eagles, wide receivers getting hurt, tight ends getting hurt, offensive line, most importantly, getting hurt year in and year out. And Carson's just there left to deal with it all. But when other stories come out about your own attitude, about plays being called, an offensive scheme, and butting heads with your head coach, guess what? Yeah, sure, you can have problems as a quarterback, but you can't be the problem. You got to be the guy that's going to mask all the other problems. And ever since the season ended, it only seems like there's more problems surrounding Carson Wentz. He came out, really the only message he's given everybody else is talking about how great Rodney McLeod is. And that's great. That's fine. But then you see a guy like Jalen Hurts come out and talk about the competition. Talk about how he wants to take those reins. Crickets from Carson. Jalen Hurts comes out. There's a Alex's Lemonade story about how he gave $30,000 to a family to help buy them a home. We don't see anything from Carson yet. No public statements other than just talking about Rodney McLeod. We talked about it earlier in the week about press conferences and all that. We talked about it with Kevin Negandhi on Monday. And when we look at Carson, I would love to hear him say, yeah, I know the speculation that's out there. I know that your new head coach has already spoken. What's wrong with coming out and saying, hey, whatever the team decides, I'm here for the team? Because I honestly believe watching Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz throughout last season and watching even when Jalen Hurts was the starter and Carson going over to him, encouraging him after he threw his first touchdown, Carson was one of the first people off the sideline to congratulate him. After he got a win, Carson was one of the first people to congratulate him. Like watching him play is just great. Watching that dynamic looks great. I know there's a lot of bad reports. I think it's just very possible. I think it's more than possible. It's likely that Carson Wentz has bad blood with ownership. He had bad blood with Doug Peterson, but I don't think that ever trickled to his own teammates. It bothers me that if he's changing plays at the line of scrimmage, like other reports have come out, Joe Santoliquito, Philly Voice a couple of years ago, most recently Jeff McClain, Inquirer.com coming out saying that same thing. That's what bothers you. That's what can get under my skin. I don't think he's a bad teammate when it comes to overall locker room management, like I know some people want to say, but I think it can be under the guidelines of bad teammate when you're changing plays that could be the most beneficial to your offense simply because you want to look good or you want to do the thing that makes you the most comfortable. Sometimes it's good to go outside your comfort zone a little bit to see what else you can do. And maybe trusting your teammates to make a play more so than yourself might be beneficial to the rest of the team as well. But it did surprise me a little bit to see Donovan come out and just say that it looks like the best resolution to all this could be just letting Carson Wentz go and coming up with a trade, wherever that may be. A lot of money tied up there. We went over some other things surrounding Jalen Hurts, hiring a family friend, Johnson as their quarterback coach. Their first phone call was to Lincoln Riley, his college coach, to come here and be the head coach of the Eagles. He turned it down. There's the other things in place that make you believe the Eagles are willing to get off the Wentz wagon, as we heard for the first time in a long time just the other day. Do have to tell you about Best Bets brought to you by our friends at DraftKings. Check out DraftKings.com and also download the DraftKings app. I was riding a high yesterday during the 76ers game. They're leading by 20, 30 points at halftime. They were incredible. 32 points. Checking my notes. 32 points they were up at halftime. The line was 7.5. Joel Embiid, for all the praise I will bestow upon that man, gets the ball stolen from him in the final 14 seconds. And I believe they were up 8 at the time. So I'm thinking, okay, this is good. And then the other, Melo Ball steals it, runs up the court, hits a 3, and I'm thinking, here we go. Sixers get a couple of foul shots in, and when I steer you wrong, I'll steer you wrong. And I'll admit it. I'll acknowledge it. I bet the game last night. It was a little bit of a damper, and the Sixers did not cover the 7.5 point spread. So my apologies to you. I dropped to 1-1 now after I was riding a high of being 1-0. I'm still all about the Super Bowl. I'm still all about the big bet for that one being the Chiefs minus 3.5. Still very much about the Chiefs in the big game itself in that Super Bowl. So make sure you still take advantage of what's going on there coming up on Sunday in the big game. But I was with you. I know I was following other people tweeting out about the line with the Sixers. It dampened my spirits. And then listening to Joel Embiid talk about his son and how he's elevated this play because of it, it made me feel a little bit more chipper. But those were some of the things that went on as far as the big bets theory or big bets segment. And I was rattling around in my head throughout the game, especially in the waning minutes when I was watching the Hornets start to march back against the Sixers. Sixers right back at it tonight. 8 o'clock tip-off against the Portland Trail Blazers. Damian Lillard will come to town, so I'm excited to see all that. Now, at the top of the show, I did mention something here that I wanted to make sure I got in. And that was the good news surrounding the possibility of fans returning to at least the Wells Fargo Center. Baseball is optimistic about having fans. They're going to have fans at spring training. Phillies have a plan in place, so we'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. But right now, I just want to tell you the Wells Fargo Center just released a video and a press release on their, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, Well Health Safety Rating. So they have been approved with a Well Health Safety Rating, and here's what it includes: contactless payment at concession stands, cleaning crew just for desanitizing the Wells Fargo Center, and this is the most amazing thing: a new HVAC system in the Wells Fargo Center that can pump in fresh air within 30 minutes, like full fresh air throughout the entire Wells Fargo Center in 30 minutes. That's pretty impressive. That's a great step forward to sooner rather than later getting fans back at games. I know that's something we're all looking forward to when it's safe, when we can do it. And this is a great step towards doing that and getting that literally seal of approval in doing so. Hopefully that happens in the not too distant future. I know we all want to go to a game. I know I can't wait to hear real human beings. I can't wait to hear real human beings at the 76ers, at the Flyers, and just having themselves a good time, like old times again. Thanks for joining us here on the Farzy Show here in the Steven Singer Studios. My thanks to Paul Hudrick, who joined me last night. Again, you can check out Paul, 97.3 ESPN, as well as Coming In for a Landing podcast for all your Sixers stuff, and then also Riley Cote on the Nasty Knuckles podcast and web show. We have their own website, nastyknuckles.com. Instagram, they put out some great highlights from their show. If you at least want to check it out, I highly recommend that you do so. He and Nasty are both wildly entertaining, so check that out. We'll have our podcast. We'll have our live stream has been up. We'll have it on loop for you on Facebook Live, on Twitter, on Twitch, also on Facebook Live as well. So thanks so much for joining us today for this edition of the Farzy Show. And also check out FarzyShow.com. Noon today, Super Bowl squares will be posted on our website with our good friend Steven Singer as our presenting sponsor for that. Have a great day, everybody. Take it easy.